we had discussed with double fertilization the other day, right? Then what else? Check karo. Double fertilization over, right?
Yes, ma'am.
The process of double fertilization we had studied. Double fertilization results in the formation of the fruit and the seed. So the concept of double fertilization, why is it known as double fertilization? What is the answer that you will write? For the entire process of pollination and fertilization for the flower, we had already studied. For the flower, the other day we studied that if it is a flower, inside the ovule, how many female gametes we have come across in a flower? How many female gametes? 8 female gametes. नाम याद है? नाम याद है? 8 female gametes. पढ़ाई कभी स्टार्ट करना है? कब स्टार्ट करना है? When are you planning to start? कौन सा चैप्टर था एग्जाम? ये कौन सा चैप्टर है? ये इस साल में बोर्ड मत लिखो, नेक्स्ट ईयर लिखो। इतना भी नहीं समझ में आ रहा है कि इस साल बर्बाद। हाँ ये वाला है। Look at her, she's showing me the topic. ये वाला है। ये कौन सा आइडेंटिफिकेशन चल रहा है? टॉपिक क्या है उतना भी 10th स्टैंडर्ड के बच्चों को पता नहीं चल रहा है। What are the 8 types or what are the 8 gametes in the female? Polar nuclei, antipodal, axil, synergids. In contrast to the 8 female gametes, how many male gametes in the pollen tube? 2 male gametes. What is fertilization? What is fertilization? Fusion of, what did we learn the other day? What is fertilization? Fusion of 1 male gamete with egg cell to form the zygote, and this zygote will give rise to the embryo and later the seed. So that is what we had studied the other day. And what was triple fusion? What is triple fusion? Fusion of 2 polar nuclei with
ये बोल रहे फ्यूजन पढ़ा है भी बोल रहे अभी बोला सब तो बोला
वो कुछ भी बोलने
अरे
के
मैम
लिए आता है
सब बोला
fusion of 2 polar nuclei with पूरा प्रोसेस हो गया लिखा क्यों नहीं कुछ भी हाँ कुछ भी नहीं लिखा है so how will you remember क्लास में हुआ क्या है उतना नोटबुक लिखा एब्सेंट है नो
एब्सेंट
जो
एग्जाम चल रहा हम दिनों एक स्कूल में
एब्सेंट है
हां
नोटबुक लिखा
एक स्कूल में ठीक है
हाँ so triple fusion and everything we had done no the class so when we are talking about triple fusion why is that method known as triple fusion
आधा टाइम प्रेजेंट आधा टाइम
तुम प्रेजेंट भी होते हो तो शरीर लेके आते हो सुनते तो नहीं हो सीधा दिस साइड व्हाई दे आर ऑल एब्सेंट टुडे अभी कोई से
गरबा खेलेंगे मैम
एग्जाम तो सब स्कूल में खत्म हो गया है
हम गरबा खेलेंगे
वाह
ये बेचारा जा नहीं पाया इसलिए
वो नवरात्रि जाएगा
जाना है उसको रो रहे हैं अरे मैम कुछ भी बोलते हैं अरे हाँ
जाना होगा
बचपन में रियल बाप बोल रहे हैं
What was the concept of triple fusion? Triple fusion, what we had studied was, if we again, I will just explain you these 2 processes, the details you will have to study from the volume again, those of you who remained absent. Talking about the entire ovule, if I start from there, talking about the entire ovule, the female part of the flower, what was it, what did we study? That this entire part, that is the carpel, what will happen to the carpel if you consider that the stigma is here and then the pollination to happen, and after pollination what are the stages? This is the ovule, and how many types of gametes supposed to be here? The ovule, 2 types of 2 male gametes, and now the female gametes are this 1, 2, and 3 here, 2 here in the center, and up there 2, 3 more. So these are known as antipodals. These are known as polar nuclei. This is the X cell. These two are synergids. What is this opening known as? What is this opening known as? This opening is known as the micropyle. And now that the pollen grain sits on the stigma, I had explained you the other day with all those detailed stages. So now that this pollen grain sits on the stigma, what will happen? This pollen tube will be now forming, and then it will move towards the ovule and deliver the male gamete into the ovule. So into the ovule. So how many male gametes will it contain? The pollen tube, 2 male gametes. Here, to majorly understand 2 steps. What are the 2 steps? We talk about the first, that is fertilization. The first is fertilization. So what was fertilization? The fusion of 1 male gamete with the egg cell. So this male gamete will come and fuse with the egg cell, because egg cell is the first gamete very close to the micropyle. Now that this fusion happened, the first male gamete, all of you will write this. You are just watching the show and उसके बाद भूल जाते हो कि पढ़ाया क्या है क्लास में. First male gamete and the first male gamete and the egg cell. What is fertilization? Fusion of first male gamete and egg cell to produce what? A single cell known as zygote. What will this zygote give rise to? A multicellular structure known as the embryo, and this embryo will ultimately form the seed. These are the stages to remember. So अगर ऐसा है fusion where the egg cell is getting fused with the first male gamete, then immediately this egg cell and the first male gamete, they result in the formation of a single cell. What will we term this single cell as? This is the zygote now. The first male gamete and the egg cell resulted in the formation of a single cell known as the zygote. But now this zygote will not remain like this. It will immediately show rapid cell division, getting converted into a multicellular structure known as the embryo. But for the formation of the embryo, what is necessary? Nutrition is necessary. So this embryo will start using the nourishment of the synergids first of all. Synergids are the female gametes which will not participate in the process of fertilization, but the nutrients which are there in the cytoplasm are only to provide nourishment to the developing embryo. But now that this embryo is formed, very soon what happens? These 2 polar nuclei, they fuse. These 2 polar nuclei, they fuse, and this cell is also known as the secondary nucleus. This cell, which is formed by the fusion of 2 polar nuclei, what is it called? This is known as the secondary cell or the secondary nucleus. So talking about the second phase of fusion, what is the second phase of fusion? This is known as the triple fusion. Why? Because this phase, the next phase involves the fusion of two polar nuclei forming the secondary cell and the second male gamete, and resulting in the formation of what? Resulting in the formation of a single cell known as the endosperm, and this endosperm will now start forming again a multicellular structure. This endosperm also will start forming a multicellular structure later. So this secondary nucleus and then the male gamete enters and fuses. The male gamete will fuse, resulting in the formation of a endosperm, which is a multicellular structure. So after a particular period of time when both the male gametes are polar nuclei and second male gamete. So now this is known as the endosperm. This is known as the endosperm. And what about this one? This is known as the embryo. Now, at this stage, the ovule has got two things, two multicellular structures. One, the embryo, the other, endosperm. But the embryo will develop further, or the endosperm will develop further, depends on what type of a plant it is. If it is a dicot plant, then the embryo will develop much further, much more. And if it is a monocot plant, then the endosperm will develop further. For example, if it is a pea or a gram or a cereal, then the embryo starts developing and occupying the entire space of the ovule. If it is the rice and the maize, monocot, then the endosperm will develop. So right now we are only talking about the development of the embryo. So now, then how will this endosperm, will it just as it is vanish away? No, the nutrients of the embryo, endosperm, will be used up by the embryo. The nutrients of the antipodals will be used up by the embryo. And now this embryo almost occupies the entire space of the ovule, getting converted into a big multicellular structure. So what is this big multicellular structure known as? This big multicellular structure is now known as the seed. This big multicellular structure is now known as the seed. And what has happened to the upper parts of the plant? The upper parts of the plant also shows a whole lot of transformation where it has got converted into a fruit and the upper parts all dry out, fall off. And then this regions of the fruit now start taking its specific structure, performing functions. So I would say this is known as the pericarp, the outer covering of the ovary wall forming the fruit wall, the peel of the fruit. The middle region between the ovule and the ovary wall, this pulpy region, which is majorly the edible part of the fruit, this is known as the mesocarp. And third, we are talking about the outer covering of the seed. Now, if this is the seed, then what is this outer lining of the seed known as? The outer covering of the ovule known as? This is the seed coat, also known as the endocarp. So now that the flower has got transformed into a fruit. So the entire ovary, I would say yes, the entire ovary now got transformed into the fruit. And the ovule got transformed into the seed. But now that we talk about the seed, what is the next concept to understand? The seed contains nutrients and the potential to give rise to a new plant. We are talking about the process of sexual reproduction in a plant. It is the seed which will give rise to a new plant, and the seed is always formed by fertilization in the flower. So this particular seed, now that it is in the soil, if now the seed is in the soil, this particular seed will have two tissues. The tissues which are growing downwards, this tissue is known as the radicle, and the tissue which grows upwards, this tissue is known as the plumule. The radicle will give rise to the root system later, and the plumule will give rise to the shoot system later. But then, under what condition will this seed start giving rise to the radicle and the plumule, and what is this process known as? This process is known as germination. What is germination? The process in which a seed gets converted, transformed into a seedling, which later gets converted into a young plant. This is what is germination. What is germination? The entire process of cell division which converts a seed to a seedling. This is a seedling. And then later it will start giving rise to the parts of the seed. The roots will all develop, the stem and the branches and the shoot will develop, and then a young plant comes up. But what are the factors? What is very much necessary for this entire process? For this entire process, three things very much necessary: adequate amount of oxygen, adequate amount of water or moisture, and adequate, optimum, and the most suitable temperature. So certain seeds remain in the soil for a long period, but they don't germinate. But the remote is here. Remote यहाँ पे है. अच्छा. Now, so now when we are talking about that this particular process, the seed getting converted into seedling and then a young plant, what are the basic requisites? क्या है? Oxygen होनी चाहिए. The seed should be getting adequate oxygen. The seed should be getting adequate moisture. Third, the seed should be getting a proper ambient temperature. Then only all the chemical reactions and the process of growth, cell division will be much more. You get questions that a seed, you get this type of question that Seema had planted certain amount of seeds, certain number of seeds in the soil, but almost for 2-3 months she did not see any outgrowth happening. Why did the seed not germinate? Because the seed did not receive some of these factors. Maybe the oxygen was not adequate, maybe the moisture was not adequate, maybe the soil was dry. Maybe the soil was dry. If the soil is dry, the process of germination will never happen. Maybe the temperature was too low, temperature was very high. Then in either cases, the process of germination will not happen. Talk about some handful of seeds. Put them in the soil, put them in the water. They will now start absorbing the water. But now that they have just started absorbing water, put them in the fridge for 2 days. Will they sprout? Put them in the fridge for 2 days. Will they germinate? No, they will not germinate. And even if they germinate, it will take a long time. So, एक दिन में sprout होता था. Now the sprouting, even if it happens, it will happen, but it will take almost 6 to 7 days. हाँ, उसको बोलते हैं dormancy, seed dormancy. Quite a number of times, temperature, even if it is 2 degree less or 2 degree more, then also the seeds will not show the process of germination. Why? Because the enzymes inside are not active to carry out those processes. So here a basic concept, you get some 1 or 2 questions like this on the seed. It's a small paragraph in your text, but some questions you do get, some application questions also you get on this, a concept of seed germination. So remember, those 3 factors are very much necessary for the process of seed germination. So that is all about the plant reproduction that you have to study. Take a note of all these words, processes that I mentioned again. This is what you'll have to study. The points from the volume first you can go through, find out what is not understood. Next is, we try understanding now the process of reproduction in human. The process of reproduction, the moment we talk about the process of reproduction in human, a major concept that already we had discussed was the gonads, the gametes. We are talking about sexual reproduction. The first thing is gametes. What are gametes? This I had discussed the other day also. And right from the first day when I started with this chapter with heredity also we had discussed this. What are gametes? What are gametes?
Now the enzyme released by the reproductive part of the male or female. It's basically the reproductive cells.
Cells they are, not enzymes. What are gametes? With the chapter on heredity also we had studied. Remember I had explained you sex determination, that was the last topic in that chapter. We had studied sex determination. How many chromosomes are there in the cells of the reproductive organs? How many chromosomes in the cells of the reproductive organs? Cells of the reproductive organ. Now that I start with this concept, I would say gametes are what? Reproductive cells, specialized reproductive cells. This is the definition. But I have to understand that this is the cell of a reproductive organ. तो ये जो सेल ऑफ द रिप्रोडक्टिव ऑर्गन है, इसमें कितने क्रोमोसोम्स होना चाहिए? हाँ? ये तो सितारे जमीन वाला कंडीशन हो गया, 21 क्रोमोसोम्स। इतने बार बोलने के बाद भी यू आर सेइंग 21 पेयर्स। 23. 23 pairs, that is 46. 23 pairs, that is 46. Again, I repeat, if it is a cell of the testes, meaning I am talking about a reproductive organ. Now, listen very carefully, try to understand, note down karo. I talk about a cell of the reproductive organ, cell of the testis, cell of the ovary, with the flower also, the anther, the filament, there also I told you, the anther, the ovary, the cells are all having a specific number of chromosomes. Now that we are talking about human, the cell of the testis, how many chromosomes will it have? 46. This cell will undergo the process of cell division. What type of cell division? Meiosis. All of you will note this down. All of you will note this down. Don't remember anything later. एक हफ्ते में सब भूल जाओ. So now the cell of the testis will undergo the process of meiosis, leading to the formation of how many cells? Leading to the formation of 4 cells, and all these cells, they have the same number of chromosomes. Kitna? 23. They have the same number of chromosomes. How many? 23. What is the method? Meiosis gives rise to 4 cells. Each of them same number of chromosomes, same amount of cytoplasm. But since we are talking about this process, let us just start with this concept. If I were to talk about the cell of a ovary, that is the female reproductive organ, does the cell show meiosis? Yes. This cell also shows meiosis, but thoda sa alag hai, where the cytoplasm is not equally distributed. The cytoplasm is concentrated in one cell maximally, and the other 3 cells will have scanty cytoplasm, but the number of chromosomes same. If it is a cell of testis, meiosis produces 4 functional cells. If it is a cell of ovary, meiosis produces only 1 functional cell. अभी फिलहाल पहले ये सुनो, ठीक है? So this is a concept always true. यहाँ पे क्यों all 4 cells are functional? Because cytoplasm and nucleus are evenly distributed in all the 4. यहाँ पे ऐसा क्यों है? Cytoplasm is concentrated in one cell, but nuclear content evenly distributed. What is the significance? That we will have to learn later. Significance क्या है इसका? We will learn with the system. So first concept is this one. But now that we are talking about reproduction, now let us learn the systems one after the other first. Once we are acquainted with the system, then the process. So now we will first of all look into the male system, the parts and the functions to know. We talk about the male reproductive system and certain parts, certain functions, very, very specific to remember. The male reproductive system, what are the parts? The first is a pair of testes. So that is where we are talking about the testes, a pair of testes. Second, a pair of vas deferens. A pair of vas deferens, check spellings. Third, a single urethra. And fourth, the retractile penile region or the penis. Talking about the testes, the primary organ of the reproductive system in case of the males. Talking about the reproductive system in the males. Now, this particular testis that we are talking about is the major organ performing 2 major functions. And इसके काफी सारे features है that we'll have to understand with reference to the position, the functions of सबसे important है that we are talking about is the functions of the testes. What are the 2 functions? Number 1, what are the 2 functions of the testes? The 2 functions of the testes are the formation of the male gamete. the formation of the male gamete. And what is the male gamete known as? The male gamete is known as the sperm. Number 2, secretion of the male hormone. Secretion of the male sex hormone. And क्या है male sex hormone? That is testosterone. टेस्टोस्टेरोन. अभी टेस्टोस्टेरोन के 3 फंक्शंस क्या थे? किसको याद है? टेस्टोस्टेरोन के 3 फंक्शंस: डेवलपमेंट ऑफ सेकेंडरी सेक्सुअल कैरेक्टर्स, डेवलपमेंट मैच्योरेशन ऑफ द रिप्रोडक्टिव ऑर्गन्स, और थर्ड formation of the gametes. So now talking about the 3 functions, all of you will write down these 3 functions again. Likho 1, 2, 3. This is very important. Mention the functions of testosterone. What are the functions of testosterone? Likho. नंबर पे लिखूंगा. अगले साल तक खत्म होगा फिर तो. लिखो अभी. Functions of testosterone. लिखो. Number one. Again I am repeating. ये standard question आता है for 2 to 3 marks. There is no challenge here. पढ़ना है 4 बार, याद हो जाता है, बस लिखना है straight. कोई application नहीं आते. What are the functions of testosterone? Number one, the development and maturation of the reproductive organs in the male body. Development and maturation of the reproductive organs in the male body. Next is reproductive organs in the male body. Next is number 2. We are talking about the second function, development of the secondary sexual characters. Development of secondary sexual characters. Number 2. Number 3, secondary sexual characters. Always to remember, we are talking about the extensive body hair, the widening up of the shoulders, and then the mustache and the beard. All these, the typical characteristics that defines the maleness. And later, we will also talk about the female characteristics. Okay. And number 3, we go. Number 3, formation of the male gamete. Formation of the male gamete. अभी लिखो. Formation of the male gamete. So these 3 functions always to remember. अभी testis के special features क्या है? Testis special features are the testis is extra abdominal. What is the meaning? The testis is extra abdominal, meaning the testis is away from the abdomen. If I understand that this particular region is the abdomen, is the testis inside, or the testis is away from the abdomen. So this organ, the testis, a pair of testes that we talk about, is away from the abdomen but surrounded and covered by some muscular structures. Some muscular bag-like structures are there which connects the organ to the abdominal wall. So the first thing that we are talking about is extra abdominal. Matlab, the testis is away from the abdomen. सीधा फेंक दूंगी वहां. एकदम सीधा बैठो, straight. सुनो, समझो. पेन का कवर का प्रॉब्लम है. हाँ तो वो बाद में भी हो सकता है ना. वो लेके भागेगा चोर है. नहीं लेके भागेगा वो. मैं जब तक चोरी किया था. मैं हूँ ना क्लास में, जब तक मैं हूँ क्लास में, before bell is ringing, तुमको पेन का कवर मिल जाएगा. Now, when we are talking about what is meant by extra abdominal, what is the meaning of this to write? Why is testis known as extra abdominal? इसका कोई significance है? Definitely है. What is the significance of the testis? Unlike the other organs of the body, why the testis has to be away from the abdomen to maintain a temperature lesser than the body. Now, what we are going to write here? The testis is extra abdominal. लिख के रखो 1 or 2 concepts that you should write for a 2-mark answer. The testis is extra abdominal, that is. अच्छा ये भी घर पे लिखोगे, घर पे कौन लिख करने वाला? हाँ? तो अभी घर पे सोते थे ना तुम, 1-2 घंटे सो सकते थे, क्यों आए थे लेक्चर के लिए? Now, the testis is extra abdominal, that is, it is away from the abdomen, and maintains the temperature, 2 to 3 degrees centigrade, maintains the temperature 2 to 3 degrees centigrade, maintains the temperature 2 to 3 degrees centigrade, lesser than the body temperature, maintains the temperature 2 to 3 degrees centigrade, lesser than the body temperature, for efficient sperm formation. For efficient sperm formation. Now, what is the concept that we are discussing here? We are discussing that why should the testis be away from the abdomen? The testis should be away from the abdomen because our body temperature, that is 37 degrees centigrade, is not suitable for sperm formation. A temperature lesser than 37 is required, and that's the reason the testis is away from the body, to maintain a temperature 2 to 3 degrees centigrade lesser than the body temperature, something around 33, 34. So ये जो temperature 33, 34 temperature चाहिए, that's the reason the testis is suspended away from the body, so that effective sperm formation can take place. The second is, then how is this temperature maintained? That 2 to 3 degrees centigrade हमेशा testis का temperature maintain रखना है. Another feature that we understand is the scrotum is always covered by a muscular sac-like structure, and that is known as the scrotal sac. The testis remains covered, wrapped up, protected by a muscular sac-like structure, and there is a muscular sac-like structure all around connecting them to the abdomen like this. So this muscular sac-like structure that we are talking about, what is it? The scrotal sac. Now this scrotal sac, I'm talking about muscles. What type of muscles? Smooth muscles. So this smooth muscles will be contracting and relaxing from time to time as per the need of the body. So when will this scrotal sac, what type of functions will the scrotal sac show? The scrotal sac shows two functions. One is contraction, relaxation. But contraction when? Contracts when the outside temperature, contracts when the outside temperature is very low. Outside temperature is very low and takes the testis towards the body. Takes the testis towards the body. So this is what I'm saying. When will the scrotal sac contract? When will the scrotal sac contract? To take the testis towards the abdomen. Why is it necessary? Because now the surrounding temperature is very low, and if the temperature of the testis is much lesser, now the sperm formation cannot happen. So now it has to get the body's warm. So at times the scrotal sac contracts and takes the testis towards the abdomen. But now next, the other possibility is, or condition that happens is, the scrotal sac relaxes when the body heat tends to rise. When the body heat tends to rise, or the outside temperature is very high. Outside temperature is very high and it will take the testis away from the body. Take the testis away from the body. So these two concepts you will have to remember. Write for a 2-mark, 3-mark answer. Under what condition will the scrotal sac contract? Whenever the body is surrounding the body, the temperature is very cold, very, very low temperature. So at that time, the scrotal sac will always contract, take the organ towards the abdomen, towards the body, and get the body's warm so that sperm formation can continue. Why relax and take the testes away from the body more? Because the body heat is increasing because of muscular exercise, or outside temperature is very high. In either of these cases, the scrotal sac will relax, take the testes away from the body so that the temperature efficient for sperm formation can be maintained. So ये दो feature याद रखना चाहिए. Now that you'll have to remember the basic functions of the testes. Something more about the testes we'll have to know, but before that, let us talk about vas deferens. What is it? Check here in the figure. Vas deferens is a tube. What is vas deferens? A pair of tubes connecting which parts? This vas deferens will now start moving upwards. The vas deferens actually moves upwards. Second, the vas deferens move upwards towards the abdomen, and this vas deferens carries or connects, first of all, the testes towards the urethra. So it is actually running almost merging with the wall of the bladder. This part in excretory system we had studied, the urinary bladder and the urethra. So this vas deferens merges on the wall of the bladder and opening up into the urethra. Merge.
बड़ा वाला जो डार्क वाला जो सर्कल है वो यूरेथ्रा है.
Ureter. This is the ureter and this is the urethra.
वो जो ureter
bladder का वो.
This is the bladder.
उसके ऊपर वो जो छोटे-छोटे black color का spot.
This one. These are the glands. I'm not talking about the glands right now. The glands बाद में हम सीखेंगे. पहले try understanding these tubes. What are these tubes? Vas deferens. What is vas deferens? Vas deferens connects which parts? Vas deferens connects the testes to the urethra. Vas deferens connects the testes to the urethra. So try understanding that this testes that we are talking about, the testes will be producing the sperms. So what is the function for the vas deferens you are supposed to write? Carry sperms from the testes towards the urethra. It is not opening into the bladder. It is actually opening, merging inside the bladder, almost at the junction of the bladder urethra. But then the sperms are not entering into the bladder. Sperms are entering into the urethra. Okay? So what is the function that you write? What is the function of the vas deferens to mention? Helps in passage of the sperms from the testes to the urethra. What is the function of the urethra yet studied with reference to the excretory system? Urethra helps in release of the urine. Now, in the male and the female body, the excretory and the reproductive structures are very close. So now that I talk about the urethra, what are you supposed to write down? The function of the urethra is, it's a common passage. It's a common passage for the release of urine and sperms. It's a common passage for the release of urine and sperms in the male body. All of you will note down the functions. The last part that we are talking about, the penile region, the muscular region here. This muscular region function kya hai? This is also known as the copulatory organ. What is its function? Its function is to help in the introduction of the male gamete. Introduction of the male gamete into the female body for the process of fertilization. So now that we are talking about the introduction of the male gamete into the female body, if we are talking about fertilization, this is a must. What are the 4 parts now that we talk about? The 4 parts are testes, the primary organ I'm mentioning again. Why primary organ? Because it is forming the gametes. The vas difference, the urethra and the penile region. वो तुम्हारा प्रॉब्लम है, नहीं समझ में आ रहा।
नहीं, वो उसका कहाँ तक है? पेयर ऑफ वास्ट डिफरेंस।
यहाँ तक।
और उसके बाद यूरेटर का कहाँ से चलेगा?
यहाँ तक। I'm writing also in different colors so that you understand. Because you are distracted, इसलिए नहीं समझ में आ रहा। So now that we are talking about the basic functions, I said the basic features of the testes. I've been talking about the hormone, the functions of the hormones. ये बहुत important है to study properly. उसके बाद I've been talking about two major features, testis का ये feature and function of the scrotal sac. ये जो दो features मैंने discuss किया, this you'll have to remember. Scrotal sac function क्या है, etc. And then talking about the functions of each of these parts. This for 1 mark you get questions. Vas difference का function क्या है, urethra का function क्या है, and penis का function क्या है. Now that is about the reproductive system. Little bit more now we go ahead understanding the testes. Now again refer to this figure. For the testes function क्या है, meiosis. Every single testis is making gametes, but talk about the section. अगर section of testis अगर देखा जाए, section of testis अगर देखा जाए, inside the testis there are many tubules, there are many fine tubes are there, and inside every single tube the process of gamete formation is happening. For example, if I have to understand the section of a testis, I would say that the section of a testis, if seen, every single cell of the testis, how many chromosomes? Every single cell of the testis, 46 chromosomes undergo this process. And as a result of this, what will they form? Every single cell is forming 4 gametes. Now the next concept I am saying that males have got a pair of testes. Is it that both the testes undergoing the method of sperm formation simultaneously? Yes. Both the testes undergo the process of sperm formation. और हर एक टेस्टिस के अंदर if I check there are hundreds and hundreds of cells which has 46 chromosomes. Is it that all cells undergoing meiosis at the same time या 4-5 cell ही undergoing meiosis? All cells are undergoing meiosis. So it is actually both the testis and all cells of testis undergoing meiosis. So it is actually both the testes and all cells of the testes undergoing the process of meiosis, and this is the reason why millions of sperms are formed at a time. What is the reason millions of sperms are formed? This is not the case when we talk about female. So what is the reason that millions of sperms are formed in the male body? Because both the testes are undergoing the process of meiosis at a time. And testis के अंदर जितने भी cells हैं, diploid cells with 46 chromosome, all of them are producing gametes. So if I consider that there are 1000 cells, for example, 1000 में से कितने gametes निकलेंगे? Into 4. One cell will always make 4 gametes. One cell will always make 4 functional gametes in the male body. तो अगर मैंने सिर्फ 1000 सेल कंसीडर किया एक टेस्टिस के अंदर, then each testis is producing 4000 sperms. The number of sperms formed is in millions. The number of sperms formed by the testis at a time is in millions. So that's why we say, how is it possible that so many sperms formed at a time? Because of this rule, both the testes and all cells of the testes. Okay, something more that we have to talk about is that in the male system, there are some additional glands. What are those additional glands known as? These additional glands are known as the accessory glands. Accessory glands of the male body. So first of all, I've been talking about the testes, vas deferens, the urethra, the penis. Apart from that, now let us look into these two glands. Can you see this glands there? Can you see this particular gland? This is actually one single gland. So I talk about this one, and this one. Three glands are there. One purple, one pink, and one yellow. Yes or no? Can you see those three glands? Right now we are talking about only this, the pink and the yellow. What are these glands? One gland at the junction of the bladder and the urethra. One gland almost on the surface on the wall of the bladder. At the junction of the vas deferens and the bladder. This gland I am talking about. What is the name of this gland? What is the name of this gland? Seminal vesicles. What is the name of this gland? Seminal vesicles. Now that we are talking about the seminal vesicles, what is the job? What does it release? It is a gland, I said. The seminal vesicles, what does it produce? It produces some alkaline secretion. The seminal vesicles produces some alkaline secretion. What is this alkaline secretion meant for? Provide nourishment to the sperms. Provide nourishment to the sperms. Now sperms को nourishment continuous nourishment की जरूरत क्यों है? Because if I talk about the sperm, I look into the structure of a sperm. How would the human sperm look like? The human sperm is almost like this with a lashing tail. And here is the chromosome. How many chromosomes, tell me? Huh? How many chromosomes? Just now? 46. इसमें मैं क्या लिखूं? 46 लिखूं? कितना लिखूं? 23. हमेशा याद रखो. If it is a gamete, it is only 23. Clear है? So I am saying ये जो seminal vesicle है on the surface of on the junction of the vas deferens and the bladder, what is it releasing? It is releasing an alkaline secretion, and this alkaline secretion is providing nourishment to the sperms. So nourishment क्यों जरूरत है? Because this male gamete has to move. It can move on its own, and it should require nourishment. So this particular male gamete is capable of movement on its own. This male gamete is capable of movement on its own. The first gland, name and function. Talk about the second gland now. What is the second gland known as? The second gland is known as the prostate glands. Now this prostate glands that we are talking about, mark the prostate and the seminal vesicle in the diagram, and mark it in the diagram and also in the volume. Textbook के diagram में भी mark करो. Textbook के diagram में भी mark करो. Did you see? हाँ? Prostate and seminal vesicle ये दो ही है. है diagram में labeling अच्छी तरह से याद रखना है. This diagram for drawing generally नहीं आता है. This diagram is difficult, so 10th standard में generally for drawing it will not come, but the female system generally comes for drawing. So we'll talk about that next class. So next is the prostate glands. The prostate glands, what is its function? This also produces an alkaline secretion. But ये जो alkaline secretion है, इसका function अलग है. What is the function? It neutralizes the acidity of the female reproductive tract. The acidity of the female reproductive tract. Now, what is the meaning of this? Neutralizes the acidity of the female reproductive tract. Now that we talk about next class, the female reproductive tract, we are going to understand that the female reproductive tract is acidic. And now that the sperm, what is the necessity that the sperm has to be made in millions to increase chances of fertilization? Because if the sperms are entering the female body in large numbers, then also majority of them are killed because of the acidity of the female reproductive tract. So just try to understand, if in a male body the prostate gland is not producing the secretion adequately, this may will generally not be able to participate in the process of fertilization because this prostate gland secretion, if in adequate amount, present in the fluid in the urethral tube. So this urethral tube, now what does it contain? Three things. What will be the urethral tube containing now? Three things. One, sperm brought by the vas deferens. Second, alkaline secretion produced by the seminal vesicle. Third, alkaline secretion produced by the prostate gland. What is the location of the prostate glands to right? At the junction of the bladder and the urethra. So this urethral tube, what will it now contain? This urethral tube will contain, it is containing actually a mixture of three major components: the sperms, the alkaline secretion of the seminal vesicles, and alkaline secretion of the prostate gland. This mixture is what is known as the semen. You get this as a definition. What is semen? It's a mixture of, write it down. What is semen? Just one line definition likhna hai, one mark. What is semen? A mixture of sperms, brought by the vas deferens, and the alkaline secretions released by, brought by the vas deferens from the testis, brought by the vas deferens, and the alkaline secretions of the seminal vesicles and prostate glands. Alkaline secretion of seminal vesicle and prostate glands. Okay? So this is all about the male system. All the concepts we had discussed about the parts, function, structure, and the accessory glands also. The accessory glands also you are asked questions, differences you are asked. Differentiate between the seminal and the prostate glands based on the location, based on their function. Exam में most of you have a habit, most of the children, they will always have a habit of writing down function क्या है? Releasing alkaline secretion, but that will not give you mark. Alkaline secretion के साथ साथ function क्या है वो लिखना है, because all the glands they releasing alkaline secretion, but वो alkaline secretion के functions are all different. So that has to be written.
Alkaline secretion क्यों हो रहा है?
Alkaline secretion हो रहा है so that the male gamete can be released. Function वो लिखना है, not that only releasing. What is the need? What is the significance? That has to be written. Labeling of the diagram, very, very important. The diagram that you have in the text, the diagram that you have in the volume. Labeling, mark karo, look into the position. So I have shown you this particular figure. This particular figure, get a very, very clear idea about the parts, the locations and the glands there. The next class we are going to study the female system. All of you should have your pencils. Next class we'll have to draw diagrams about the female system. Next class probably we'll be able to wind up with the portion. We are done with heredity? Yes. No? Heredity we are not done. देखो नोटबुक
F1 जनरेशन F2 जनरेशन एक बड़ा प्लांट एक छोटा प्लांट मिक्स करके मैम एक नॉर्मल पी लेंगे एक श्रिंक पी लेंगे तो हम पढ़ा के अभी मैं पढ़ के बैठा हूँ मेरे हिसाब से तो लास्ट कंट्रोल मैं उसमें F1 F2
पहले आपने लाइफ प्रोसेस की, उसके बाद कंट्रोल कोऑर्डिनेशन की, उसके बाद जेनेटिक्स नहीं किया, हेरिडिटी नहीं किया, और एनवायरनमेंट हो गया।
मैम हम दोनों ने वो हम तो बोल नहीं दिया था F1 F2 जनरेशन वो प्लांट
का कोई एक्स्ट्रा लेक्चर था
हेरिडिटी को
सीखा
सिखाया वो
हो गया। ये दोनों बोल रहे सिखाया
हमारा पढ़ के हो
अभी
मेरा पढ़ा
आप पढ़ के हो गया that
नहीं
I'm
नहीं
not
नहीं
asking.
आपने क्लास में पढ़ा मेरे को उतना याद है
नहीं।
हम नहीं पढ़ा
आपने ये पढ़ा।
चेक करके बोलो because next class otherwise we'll be done with this chapter but पढ़ो थोड़ा सा text भी थोड़ा पढ़ो and then go
ठीक है,
through
मैम,
some
नहीं पढ़ा
question टेस्ट नहीं हुआ अभी तक हेरिडिटी का अच्छा उसका मतलब यहाँ पे कंट्रोल कोऑर्डिनेशन के बाद we had started this chapter तो हेरिडिटी फिर another few lectures ठीक है the most this is what month September for your October ठीक है
ये नहीं उसका
पढ़ो पढ़ के आना when I ask you something you are blank she is better she is studying at
ये बड़ी बड़ी नहीं ये बड़ी
आता होगी
वो भी ठंडा
ठंडा गरम चाहिए तो अच्छा ऊपर चढ़ता रहता है अरे मैंने नोटिस किया है ऐसा
ये भी सीखना पड़ेगा अपने को ये क्लास एक सीखा हुआ है
नहीं
पूरा सीखा हुआ है मैंने सीखा है नाइन्थ में चैप्टर में से और 8 में भी लोगों ने बता रखा है